And now, weighing in out of the blue corner, Josh the Punk Thompson. 100%. And on the other mic, he weighs in from the red corner, Big John McCarthy.
Well, now I'm lucky enough to be able to introduce not only a guy that is a legend in his field, but he is a friend of both myself and Josh, a guy that has been there for years. I met him in Japan and I tried to get him to roll with me. He said, I'm not doing that stuff. You're looking gay. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with being gay. My man, Mike Goldberg, you're still not rolling with me.
I'm still not rolling with you. I don't know if I want to hit mitts with Josh again because he got that smile on his face. You know the smile. He was punking me. He's like, let's go faster. See if we can puke in 35 seconds. Yeah, and I almost did, right, Josh?
Yeah, I'm watching you suffer, man. Hey, you said you wanted to go. I wasn't going to let you go half-assed. We had to go all or nothing, buddy.
Well, and that's what I was afraid of with John back in Japan. Like, we hadn't had a drink. We hadn't had dinner. He lays on his back. He's like, come on, snuggle. But as John will share with you, it was snuggles. As John will share with you, Josh, the timing was perfect.
Impeccable
because
thank you.
Bob and Ellen Meyerowitz walk down this ballroom and walk across where John and Jeff, may he rest in peace, Jeff Blatnick, where they were teaching me the basics. So it was like, wow, our new guy's learning right on the spot. Yeah. When really I wasn't. I was staying at least 10 to 12 feet away. But it was a good visual, wasn't it, Big John, big brother?
Yeah, it definitely helped. I think John's been having some problems with his internet today. I don't know what the hell is going on. We might have lost him again, but look, that's John's internet. That's like, we call it Tennessee Wi-Fi out there.
Does he have it on his tractor? Is that what it is?
Something, man, something. But hey, man, how have you been though overall? I know that we worked together with Bellator. Obviously, you called a lot of my fights in the UFC. Man, the changeover from both of us not being with Bellator anymore and then seeing the PFL. But talk about your adventure right now, what you're doing.
I'm having fun with BYB, Josh. I really am. And I feel like the sport of bare knuckle, if handled properly, can go on a mission, on a journey, if you will, like you and I experienced way back in the day of MMA. And especially as we went from Lake Charles, Louisiana and Bay St. Louis, Mississippi to 80,000 people at Sky Dome, or halfway around the world, or basically, I think eventually we went all around the world with Lorenzo's belief in global domination. So we're making steps. We're definitely going in the right direction with BYB Extreme. What I miss the most about Bellator are the people. Starting with John, starting with you, but go on down, everybody involved, from Sarno to Nordy to I even miss Rick Brzezinski. And that's saying something right there. That is saying something right there.
Did you say you miss Rick?
Oh, I did, because he gets very sensitive, John, as you know. And so Tyler Cano got married, and I hadn't seen Rick since our last Bellator, and oh my God, I think he's gotten worse. In a loving, caring way, but I think he's gotten worse.
Well, with Rick, it's election season, so that's why.
Oh,
that's right. Yeah,
once this whole thing is over, win or lose, no matter who wins and loses,
settle it down.
It settles down until about three years later.
Well, the next time Tyler gets married, I'll tell him to switch the date.
Tyler needs to be one and done, baby. One and done. Keep her that way.
Yes. Smart like Big John. Not as smart like myself. And I'm just going to say Randy because it comes right to your 50th, John.
Jesus.
But you are a very wise man. You were wise when you made the decision, and you handled it very wisely the last 50, 60 years you're in the lane of the marriage.
Dude, Miss McCarthy had him a gunshot. It was basically a shotgun wedding, basically. She's like, hey, you're going to put a ring on this thing, buddy.
And Elaine said, if you ever leave me, I got a shotgun.
Yes.
You know what's funny about okay, this is going to be crass and cruel and everything. Like my wife married me when I had absolutely zero.
You still have zero.
I was working at
John. She has
it.
You
close.
Still have zero.
That's the truth.
And your guys' dynamic hasn't changed either.
No.
Look at how beautiful a world we live in.
Man, I swear to God, finally it gets to the point where you're doing okay and stuff, and you're making money, and then it gets to the point it's like, I see all my friends that are getting divorces and doing things right, and I sort of got it. Basically, looked and I said, "All right, I got to figure this out because this is pretty simple. Because I'm being offered all kinds of wonderful things, and I'm turning them down because I just looked and I said, is that worth? Basically, is that piece of ass worth $1 million? No, it's not." Okay, because it's going to cost me.
You might have thought it was.
It's going to cost me at least that to get it. The houses and everything. Boom, gone. Okay. Yeah. No, it's not worth it.
No, John.
And so that's like what, $1 million a minute for you?
Oh no. I'm not like Josh. Okay, I'm not like Josh at all.
Okay, so 500,000 a minute.
You guys give me way too much credit. A minute. Race to the finish, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it is.
See, Josh looks at everything like it's a fight. If he gets it done with in 7 seconds, I'm getting paid. This
is what I've learned, gentlemen, over the years. It's the post-nut syndrome or clarity that you get, basically. I just go in the bathroom, pull the helmet off. When I'm done, guess what? I don't have those feelings anymore. So I'm all good. There's no reason to cheat when you got, when you got the post-nut clarity going on.
Well, Josh, if you're into sports and you are a guy that likes MMA, football, baseball, basketball, you're probably a guy that likes to bet on those sports, and BetUS is the way to do it. Right now, if you go to BetUS and use our code YouTube150, you will get an incredible 150% above what you put down. And the second time, if you put more money, 125%. BetUS is the way to go. We do give our odds. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes they're not. I'll be honest. But we do give our odds for BetUS, and they are absolutely a fantastic betting site.
John, that's why they call it betting, buddy. We're betting on ourselves to win. That's what I'm betting on myself to do. So, look, we really enjoyed using their odds over there, and they've actually come out with some early odds that we had talked about for the newest pay-per-view that is coming up. And that's going to be a fantastic one. So make sure you guys tune in, head over to BetUS, use YouTube 150, get 150% bonus on your first deposit. On your next 2 deposits, you get 125% bonus. So guys, head over to BetUS and use our promo code YouTube 150.
That is very certain. I'm trying to remember the last time I did.
Let's not talk about it.
Well, Kira was 27 years ago, so I know it was well before that. But we shall move on. First, I do want to do this though, John. Okay. I have a big birthday coming up, and I owe you an apology.
What is that?
So I'm not the only one.
No, I owe you an apology because I did not realize the milestone in which age 50 was. And I was blessed to be one of the roasters. And I burnt the toast pretty badly. And it smelled up the whole room. And now I feel guilty. Because if you were to do that to me on November 24th, I might just start crying. I might leave my own roast. So I would just like to say to you, Big John, your 50th, I apologize.
You have nothing to apologize for. You have nothing to apologize for, Mikey.
That was a fun night. I love you too, brother. I love you too. Hey, Josh, and don't tell me this isn't true. Because John and I watched the Bulls. I know you did as well, but I lived the Bulls' first 3 world championships. And there was a thing called Jordan rules. And Josh, don't tell me that there is not a thing going on in the NFL right now that does not reflect the same thing that happened to Michael Jordan with the Mahomes rules. Yeah. Hey, congrats on your success, but
Chiefs, baby, Chiefs Kingdom.
Hey, Chiefs. Okay, we'll make it Chiefs rule then.
Whatever.
Don't tell me you get a fingernail on Patrick and the flag's flying. I'm just saying.
Let's be honest. The same rule applied to Tom Brady. This before the Joe Montana. Joe Montana didn't really apply to him.
I was gonna say it didn't apply to Joe Montana.
They were. It was
killed Joe.
They were killing Joe. But look, the Tom Brady rule. I think with the tuck rule and all the other stuff, they started making those changes because they understood that the quarterback is the most prized possession in the NFL. They can't hurt their moneymakers. And so you've got Lamar Jackson. You've got Patrick Mahomes, you got Josh Allen, you've got this small group.
Oh, John, I'm now
great quarterbacks. You've got to make sure.
And who else?
Josh
Go ahead.
We only got to have a winning record.
He's
against
going
the
to say
Chiefs.
Joe Burrows.
Thank you.
I like Joe Burrows for sure. I like him. He's our kryptonite. I love that. I think that if Mahomes is going to continue to get better, he needs to have somebody like that. Peyton,
Very much so.
Yeah, Tom Brady had Peyton Manning.
Yep.
And that it definitely drove him to be better because Peyton at any moment could take everything he had and everything he had worked for, with their group of fighters, or not fighters, but their group of players. It was just, It was great to have that. I think we have that a little bit with Josh Allen, with Joe Burrow. We haven't quite got it yet with Lamar Jackson. But I feel like right now, after watching them play last night, the Ravens, holy sheesh, that little missing piece that they needed was Derrick Henry.
Henry.
He's a beast.
That's not a little piece. That's a big
boy.
piece.
The fact,
and he's old school. He's three sizes larger than Barry Sanders. But to me, you guys, he plays the game like that. He lays the ball down after a great run. Doesn't have to celebrate. Doesn't have to dance. And I'm not saying I dislike that, but I feel like he's just got the get the yards, get back up, and get some more yards mentality that everyone gave so much praise to Barry Sanders over the years.
He's a man amongst boys, though. You start looking at him run that ball, and he
gets to the second level, meaning past the line of scrimmage, into the linebackers, into the second. People don't know. He gets to the second level, and he becomes the predator. Yeah. He becomes the guy that just absolutely you don't want to try to get into him because his straight arm is the best straight arm there's ever been in football.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's devastating what this guy can do with a straight arm. And you can see safeties and D-backs like, oh shit, I got to go get him. This is going to hurt.
and their second running back is awesome too, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
So Lamar Jackson.
I mean, because I've got Derrick Henry on my fantasy team, and he didn't play the first half. He had 7 runs, which was unheard of, for him in the first half.
Right.
Comes out, he still throws up 30 points for me in my fantasy in the second half. He had 1 point or 2 points, whatever. Comes out, puts 28 points on the board for me in the second half. Just a stud, man. The game was already getting away, but he had some big runs.
Yeah,
they scared me this year.
He keeps games from becoming a game again. Once they get away, he goes on a run like he did late last night, and then the Bucs are they got the one onside kick, but then they're toast. Then it's officially over because Henry will run it for 32, and they'll run down the clock.
Yeah, lightning doesn't strike twice again those onside kicks, especially in this day right now with the way they're doing the kickoff.
Yeah, and now it's 2 of 17 because it was 1 of 15 when they had the successful one. So it doesn't strike twice, especially in the same century. Mm-hmm. But to answer Josh's question, John, he was asking, how I'm doing. And really the voids that I feel in my life are the ones like I'm doing right now, talking to 2 of my greatest friends, talking to a guy in Josh Thompson who somewhere turned the point and started liking me. I don't know when it was, but John, you probably had a lot of conversations. No, he's really not a dick because you were having a lot of conversations with me about that with Josh, and now kumbaya. Josh has brought us, John's brought us together, hugs and everything. I'm half kidding, Josh, so you know. I meant more, John, with you, but this is what I missed because this was what it was about, John, in the early days. Always about this in the early days, and I hate it's been taken away.
I tell people all the time, I don't miss the circus. I miss the clowns.
Very well put.
And that's as simple as it gets. It's the clowns that make it what it is. And it's, the ability to get together and have dinner and do the show and then have drinks afterwards and just shoot the shit and be together. Yeah. It's priceless.
And we were a traveling circus. I mean,
always.
My God. Together twice a year.
From the beginning.
We were a traveling circus.
There's a whole lot of clowns in that circus too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, you see the direction of the sport right now, right? I mean, Bellator seems like it's pretty much going to go away in January. I think they'll have their last show, maybe push it till February, but I doubt it. The PFL is hemorrhaging money left and right. ONE FC was kind of hemorrhaging money as well. I mean, it really just has the UFC at the top, which is where they've always been. But can you kind of explain to me what your thoughts are on the less promotions? People seem to think it's going to be better for the sport. And it's not going to be better for the sport because that's my opinion, the quality of athletes won't have places to go to get better before they get into these. So we're going to start pretty much kind of dumbing down the product. It's no different than when you hear Tom Brady talk about the quarterbacks in the NFL now. They're having to dumb down the game because they want them to play right out of college because they're cheaper at that price. So they want them to play as fast as possible, and they're dumbing down the plays, dumbing down the game so that they can play as fast as possible. And I feel like that's kind of where we're headed. We're going to see a little bit of a decline, I think, in the fighters' abilities because there'll be less smaller but big promotions for them to go to get better and fight and challenge themselves against other fighters that are around the world that are that next level as well. They just haven't made it to the UFC. Am I right, or am I just?
You're 1000% correct, and that's not the only reason. And I know, John, you probably will agree with a lot of this, and then I want to hear your thoughts on it, of course. But it's not the only effect it's going to have on things, John and Josh. The fact of the matter is, iron sharpens iron, and all of a sudden, you don't have the Pitbull brothers and Michael Chandler and AJ McKee and many others fighting top level fighters every night they go out in the Bellator cage. I mean, Michael Chandler has been nothing but ultimate respect, ultimate action, and has really, truly broadened his life with the move to the UFC. And he was the face of Bellator. And that just puts all those notions to bed. It's bullshit that the top level of fighters in other promotions can't fight in the octagon. That's a joke. And the people who say that, and we know the one who says it the most, it's incorrect. It's an unfair statement to the great fighters around the world. Right now, there's so much UFC on. I can't even keep up. So do these other ones just become numbers? Even the superstars, do they become numbers? Unfortunately, I guess they do. I would say there was never going to be a takeover of the UFC. But when the three of us were at Bellator, and we were putting on some pretty darn good show after show after show with some stacked cards of top level fighters who could compete in the octagon, in the one cage, whatever it was. I think that's the last time there was validity of there was another option that fans could enjoy. Thus, that option helped the fighters with negotiations and helped them to be, even if it was the big fish in the little pond, you kind of enjoy being the big fish. So I think that's a part of it as well. And I am puzzled in Big Brother. I am puzzled. Why have we not seen these other promotions be able to at least create a little bit of their own landscape on this big UFC turf? That I don't understand. And I want to know the numbers. You probably know. But you got Cyborg, you got Francis back. I mean, spectacular matchups. I really wonder what type of numbers they did for that show, because with those two as the headliners, it's valid of a high level UFC pay-per-view.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt it's valid of it. But this, long ago, here, I'll give you a little story. And this is the problem. Long ago, there was Affliction. You remember Affliction? You were wearing their clothing. Josh was sponsored by them and everything.
Yeah.
And
great guys, too. Great guys.
And the UFC got into a whole thing with Affliction as far as the the sponsorship of fighters, and they started doing things different. And then basically Dana cut Affliction out. That sent Affliction, Todd Beard was running it into, then I'll just do my own promotion. And he's going to do his own promotion, right? He calls me. And when he calls me, he says, "Hey, I need you to come down here and I want to talk to you." All right. So I go down there and he offers me the job of being the president of Affliction. And, and I said, I asked him a couple of questions. I said, "Todd, I need to know, is this number right? Because this is what I've been told you're paying this person. This is what you're paying this person." He goes, "Yeah, that number's right." And I said, "You can't make it. You can't do that."
Right.
And this is where the problem lies, is everyone wants to compete with the UFC. You can't off the bat compete, because he believed in his, looking at it. If I put Fedor on the card with Tim Sylvia and I have, Vitor Belfort and Matt Lindland and Ben Rothwell and Andrei Arlovsky and all these, I'll sell 500,000 pay-per-views. And I told him, I said, at the time, I said, "Todd, it's a grand slam home run if you get 100,000.
Yeah. I remember
Grand
you
Slam.
told me a while back what the highest number of buys that John Jones has done at one point was 700 or 800. I remember
850 something.
Yeah, I thought it was 889,000.
Josh, I was in shock when John told me that.
Yeah.
Not that I knew he wasn't doing Brock and Ronda and Connor numbers, but
no, but that's
But that just adds to your point. Right,
you got to look and this is what they think that pay-per-view is getting harder and harder and harder to do. And I know that Don Davis put out the number of he expected to do 200,000 pay-per-view buys on that, and if it was a UFC, yes, because the UFC as a company, people believe in it. They believe in those letters and that they're going to get the highest quality, so they'll put their money down. But you can only put, if you're the average person, putting money down once a month is a lot on a pay-per-view.
And now it's a subscription to whatever carrier it is, and then more money for the pay-per-views.
Yeah, so to sit there and think that, just because I put a couple of names out there, I'm going to get these buys. They've already bought. They bought the UFCs, and they can't afford to buy yours. It really gets into that.
PFL literally put it between two of the UFC's pay-per-views. You just had the pay-per-view 2 weeks ago. Then they put their pay-per-view, PFL did. And now this weekend is another pay-per-view which is a fantastic fight with Max Holloway, who's a fan favorite worldwide.
Yeah.
And Ilia Topuria had the whole country behind him in Spain. Let's be honest. No one's going to spend the amount of money on the PFL when they know that Topuria and Max are going to fight the weekend after. And it's a slugger's fest.
When they have to make a decision,
there's no decision to be made, John.
They're going to side with what they know of.
Yep.
I can picture the conversation at the breakfast table every morning. Babe, there's 3 big pay-per-views coming up this month. Now, I promise I won't watch the first UFC, but can we do the PFL and the other UFC? And she says, no, you cannot. Pick one. And the dude's like, all right, well, I got to watch the blessed one. So
that's it.
And then the next morning they go to breakfast and be like, hey, babe, can I make you coffee? What do you think? What do you think if I go out and do a lemonade stand? And then maybe can we do both pay-per-views? I'm telling you right now, you do that pay-per-view, you won't have any money after this month because I'm going to take half of it. So you're going to watch half a pay-per-view next month.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, they're.
How was my angry wife? It was pretty weak, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But I was looking at back when Bellator did their pay-per-view in New York City, Madison Square Garden. I think it was Brett Primus and Michael Chandler.
My first show. That's my first show.
Yep. And so they did 140. They were estimated at 190, I think is what they said. But then I think with however many they gave away or whatever the process was, it ended up being about 140,000.
Right.
That was huge. Like we thought that was a lot. I was like, we thought it was a lot, but we also looked at it as kind of a little bit of a failure because we were hoping to get around 250 to 300.
Sure.
Not even close. Halfway there. Now these numbers are even worse for pay-per-view because the younger generation knows every streaming service on how to get it, and send it to everybody. And so there's nothing you're going to be able to do to fix that until you create a brand that everybody wants to see, because it's the old people like John and I who don't have the patience to go onto a streaming service and figure out how to use it.
I'll lose it.
Yeah, and so
I won't see anything.
I'm always afraid if I was to go on something like that. Next thing you know, my PC and my Mac is all hacked, and then my
you gotta close those pop-ups right away.
I don't know, man. I can't imagine what it is. But those are the things that I think scare the older generation, which is like, you know what? I don't want to deal with that. Let me just pay this $80. I'll pay it if I'm going to watch it. The younger generation, they don't care.
Yeah.
If something happens, to my parents' Wi-Fi, it doesn't matter.
That's why I say the whole thing with Jake Paul.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
All of his fights, people are talking. It's like, look at what happened with Showtime. They died over his stuff. And it's like, what are you expecting? All of his fans, they stream it. They don't buy it.
Right.
They steal it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that said, which is a real element to it, as you guys know, but also it is just the pure ones that are hitting the red button to buy. They're going down drastically each fight as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know what Mike Perry and Jake Paul did. Probably decent, but the fact of the matter is you got all this, I'm going to fight boxers, and we all love Mike Perry and the grit and violence he brings to combat. But then all of a sudden, you didn't fight a boxer. So Jake, make up your mind. Are you just tell us if you're just banking and you have banked a lot?
He is.
Yeah, he is, but just then say it. Don't tell us you're going to be a world championship level boxer at one point if you're going to take a break in between to fight, first of all, Mike Perry, who Jake's at least twice his size, and Mike Tyson. And I'm old school enough thinking Mike Tyson's going to knock his ass out.
Maybe in the first round, he's got a chance in the first round.
That's the thing, right? That's the thing. And if I recall, John, a lot of his fights didn't last past the first round.
This is true.
Yeah. So, but you make a good point, Josh. And honestly, there's so much on now that here's the UFC. They don't need that revenue. Everybody needs more money.
Well, they need more
money. Well, they do, but we didn't have we had a good contract, John, back in the day with Fox. That was a good, healthy contract for the rights for those shows and the pre-games, everything we did. But the money they're getting from ESPN is at a whole different stratosphere. Yeah. And so they're not as dependent.
But you have to commend them for getting that.
Oh, and it was the great pay-per-views and everything that built up to it that led to that great TV contract. Now, the downside to it is they're putting on a lot of fights that we really don't know these people. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I remember you guys when DAZN took over, or joined us at Bellator. We started doing all 15 fights, and we'd have pro debut, 0-1, 0-1, pro debut against 0-2, and I remember sitting having a beer with you guys, saying the reality is if you're in a cage and one fighter has red gloves on and the other has blue gloves on, I don't care what their record is, they're Bellator fighters. So when they're Bellator fighters, they are representing the Bellator brand. And if somebody's just flipping around and catches those fights, now the UFC's, they're so solidified in everybody's mind, heart, and soul. It's just a given. But the UFC has a lot of those cards too that people just don't watch, but nobody's losing any money.
Not pro
losing
debuts.
Money because they're getting the money. Yeah.
They're not seeing pro debuts, but they're still seeing people that are, 3-1 or 5-1.
You're getting a lot more. You're getting a lot more of the 3-0, 4-0, 5-0s, 5-1 now than you did. When the UFC first started, everyone was a 1-0 or 0-1 or whatever.
Exactly. I do know one thing: when they walked in, nobody had ever lost. I was once told that was whispered in my ear very loudly.
Yeah.
But there came that point where it was you had to have a pretty established record to be part of the UFC. Now it's gotten to the point where they need so many fighters and they're trying to get that youth in there. They are going with a lot of younger fighters, but they have so many shows to put out. It's
absolutely, they don't pay you for 2 shows. They don't pay you that kind of money. ESPN meaning paying the UFC. So you're exactly right, John. They have to deliver a certain amount of product, and they're going to try to get the best that's out there. But the elite are the elite for a reason, and not every single fighter in the world, anybody in the world is elite. And the days that we got to live, Josh, when you came and fought for us, those days will never be replicated.
No.
Never, not even close. And it's why everything is where it is today. But everybody just gathered around for a Super Bowl a month of mixed martial arts. And it was UFC 22, UFC 23, 24. Maybe we should move to the Fertitta era. 35, 36, 37. But you guys know what I'm saying. I always felt like back in the day, every time I walked in, we were doing a Super Bowl because the production was at that level and the excitement and the card was champ after champ after champ. Every main event on those great pay-per-views could have been a horrible fight and people would have still been fine because the other 4 fights were off the charts. So you had that buffer as well that people weren't paying truly for just one fight, meaning the main
like
event.
In boxing.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Absolutely.
And that's what I've always felt has separated us from MMA, from everybody else, from boxing, from any other combat sport, because even kickboxing, when I was fighting for Coker in kickboxing, it was like the main event was no heavyweights or big time names. And then the rest of the card was people that were local, including myself, but you brought up the Fertittas, and I go back to what the difference is right now between the smaller promotions and when the UFC was being taken over by the Fertittas was the level of business savvy
Oh gosh, yeah.
to take over the UFC. The Fertitta brothers, Dana White being involved with them as well, and them kind of grooming. I guess I get nervous using that word grooming, but them kind of grooming
especially
him
nowadays
to kind of take over if they ever did sell or be part of it. But they are just leaps. They were leaps and bounds above in their thinking process moving forward. I just saw an interview with Don Davis 2 days ago or yesterday, where he basically said, look, let me just tell you guys what's going to happen. UFC is going to have ESPN, Fox, and all these other companies come to them, Netflix. It's going to offer them this money, and what's going to happen? There's going to be like 5 or 6 companies that offer them millions and millions of dollars. They're going to probably be on multiple platforms. Okay, cool. Then that's going to be great for them.
We've all said that, though.
And then there's companies that basically get outbid, and they're going to have to fall by the side. I'm sorry, but if I'm the number 2, but the Fertittas were never trying to play second fiddle to anybody. Neither was Dana White. And for him, for what Don said next was when they sort out who they're going to sign with, those other companies are going to be there for the liking for us to pick up. That is one of those approaches of like, well, we're going to always be second because we're waiting for your scraps to fall down so I can jump on them and try to exploit those people for not getting the deal done.
I never heard that.
Well, it just happened the other day.
I'm not saying.
Yeah.
I just never heard.
Yeah. I've never used a cotton swab. I've never used a cotton swab. I use a Q-tip. I've never used tissue paper. I use Kleenex.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is the three of us know that the UFC is Kleenex. It's a Q-tip.
Yeah.
And it's not petroleum jelly. I don't even know why I went there. It's Vaseline. Keep it straight here, boys. It's Vaseline. We're not back to the early story from Josh, John. But I agree. And the truth of the matter, and anybody who really, truly wants to understand or does understand why the UFC is what the UFC is today, it is because of one man, in my heart, one man and the greatest hire in the history of combat sports. Complemented by John, you with the unified rules of MMA, putting an Olympic gold medalist out to these state commissions. But that one man is Lorenzo Fertitta. Game over, mic drop. Lorenzo Fertitta, his vision that came along with his business savvy. And then it was the next concept, which John, you were very involved in. We are going to embrace regulation. So who do you hire? You hire the most respected athletic commissioner in the world, in Mark Ratner. And Mark Ratner walks into these rooms. He doesn't even have to say much. But
Mark never says much.
No, he doesn't, John. But he didn't have to because people thought, hey, if Mark is coming in here saying this is okay, it must be okay. Because Mark wouldn't be in this room if it wasn't. That's where it really started. And I remember one day, I remember the transition when Lorenzo said he wasn't going to do station casinos anymore. And he used the 2 words, global domination. And man, he was not kidding.
Josh, I don't know if you know this, but there is an incredible product out there called LMNT. And I'm not talking EL, I'm talking LMNT. LMNT, one of the greatest drinks that you could have, especially if you are a runner, you're someone that's out hiking, rucking, which is a big thing right now, or if you're farming like me when it's really hot. I am telling you right now, LMNT is the drink that you want to have by your side. It is fantastic. It is loaded with sodium because your body needs sodium. Sodium is how it runs. It also has electrolytes and magnesium, other things that your body, magnesium is one of the most important things that you can put into it. Tell me right now, you're loving your LMNT.
I love it. I love the new watermelon flavor they just came out with. It's fantastic. You know, it's funny. When we were younger, right, they used to say, if you eat too many eggs, right, you'll have high cholesterol.
Oh, yeah. All the lies.
Yeah. And now they're saying that eggs is one of the leading nutrients basically for kids' development in their brain. Same thing with salt for me, right? My career was kind of taking a little bit of a downturn because I wasn't drinking enough water and I wasn't able to actually keep the water in me. And so I noticed that my body wasn't able to maintain 2-3 training sessions a day. So I went to the doctor. I did a hydration test. They're like, man, you're so depleted of water. You're dehydrated. They said, so I had to start salt loading. Well, LMNT wasn't around back then. So I basically had to take really crappy salt and put it into my body. Man. Now that they have learned that there is different levels, I have learned there's levels to salt. They feature some of the most premium salt in LMNT. So if you guys can check them out, man, they've got 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, 60 milligrams of magnesium, and they've got different flavors. They've got the grapefruit, they've got the raspberry, they've got the watermelon, citrus,
black cherry,
citrus
lime,
flavor.
citrus.
They've got all different types of flavors, and I enjoy them. And it's look, they come in a can, so you can just grab them on the go, or they come in little mix packets as well. So something you can just grab the mix packet, buy a bottle of water, or bring a bottle of water with you if you're not ready to have it right then, and you can just mix it yourself. This is the sparkling, which comes in the can. I love it. It's fantastic. It's quick on the go. Also, too, my kids use this. So my kids, like my son, he's very competitive in sports. And so what I do is I'll pack one of these into his lacrosse bag or into his soccer bag, and he'll just have it available to him. Now, I will say this. One little caveat is make sure it's cold.
Oh, yeah.
It is a lot more enjoyable when it is cold. Don't get me wrong. I can drink it when it's not. But let me just tell you, it's like cracking open a nice cold beer. That's what it tastes like when it's cold. You crack it open, boom, put it down. It's fantastic. So it's something I can get on the go. So check it out, Element. Use the link in the descriptions down below. Every purchase you guys get through our link down below, they will actually send you a bonus package of products.
Free product.
So whatever. Yeah, free products. So check that out down below. I want to thank you guys for continuing to support us.
Stay salty, my friends. It's funny because when I was the guy that was going to Nevada to talk to Mark Ratner since he was the executive director, and I was on trying to get him to understand the sport and like the sport.
Right.
And eventually, Mark really did. He got it.
Yep.
And he was like, he goes, yeah, we can do this, and we can do this in a safe fashion. We can, and it was always we. And that's the way Mark is. He's a team player as far as everything. But I agree with you that, Mark was the first executive director in Nevada for mixed martial arts. He brought mixed martial arts. He helped get it legalized there. And that was based upon his relationship with Lorenzo. You're absolutely right.
Sure.
But I agree with you. The best hire that Lorenzo did, beyond, the Dana being hired by him as president earlier on, because we're talking a good 4 or 5 years later is when Mark came in.
Sure.
But that hire of Mark to get things moving, not only domestically, but internationally, because Mark had a great name and everyone respected him. One of the greatest hires there is. He's still there too. And you got to love him, man, because, he calls me, he'll call me about once a month and we'll chat and stuff. And he's he's absolutely an icon within the regulatory world.
He's everyone's beloved grandfather.
He is, man.
He is. I
don't know anyone that says a bad word. I don't know anyone that says a bad word about Mark.
They say I'm all about you, me, and Josh.
But the whole thing is, and I tell people this all the time, and I'd say it right to Mark, and I'd sit there and I'd say, hey, you won't find someone who'll say a bad word. I said, but do not cross that man. No. He will absolutely obliterate you. Yep. And he'll do it in the kindest way possible, but he will make you disappear. Not literally, but from the sport, gone.
Don't mistake my kindness for weakness or something. Isn't that the old phrase?
The old school Vegas mafia style.
That's what I did. I didn't want him to think he's not burying people out in the desert. But he will bury your career. You don't know that.
Well, you said they disappear. You don't know where they're going. They're probably out there at the Hoover Dam, whatever. That thing's draining a little bit now, and they're finding bodies.
Well, that I can't disagree with, but I do know if it were in the LA or Southern California metro, John would still know at this point in his life. So it's just the state line that's getting in his way, Josh.
So talk to us.
That was a compliment, John.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, did you not think that was a compliment? No, that was totally a compliment to you living that, not the burials in the desert, but you living as an undercover police officer.
Oh, that's the line right there. See, right there I was not telling anyone I was a police officer when I started doing the reffing for the UFC. And I kept having, Mike giving, this introduction, undercover LAPD police officer, right? And finally, Mike comes to me one time and he says something. He says, so you still working undercover? I said, oh, no. That ended long ago, Mike. I said, there was this dumbass that kept saying it on TV. So it's kind of hard to be undercover when you're up on there and a guy's saying, oh, he's undercover.
And I go, oh, shit. That dumbass is me.
Wow. Brilliant.
I love that.
And that's a truism, as you know. John only tells.
That is awesome. Oh, dude, that was so funny because
Your line
I went
was
on to
great,
better
though.
stuff.
Yes, amen. That's why I did it.
And you were helping
Just
me. I
looking
knew it.
out for you. You've carried me so often.
Thank you very much.
I had to look out for you. and I want to share this too. And I texted Josh immediately afterwards. When you were on the boxing event and you were on the desk, and I've loved you since day one. I've always respected you as a fighter. You've always given everything. And I've been blessed to see you grow in my business, I will say. We're all in the same business now, but from fighter, from police officer, referee to broadcaster. But I've been the one who went to college for it, that kind of stuff. So
you're definitely professional.
Right. I say that humbly, but to watch your growth and your maturity and your confidence and slowing down when you talk on the air. And I texted you that night, Josh, when you did what boxing was it? It was
Masvidal Diaz.
Yes.
Masvidal Diaz, yeah.
That's right. And I texted you right away and I was like, man, you were an absolute fucking rock star tonight. So keep it going. And it may sound a little corny, but I'm very proud of you. And I'm really happy to see where you've grown on this side of the business, because you can be a punk.
Yeah.
But you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I'm really, really happy for you. It's been hard work, and I know that.
Yeah, we were able to get put together by the Van Wagner group. So they put together the team basically that we had from Bellator. Plugged and played a lot of people from the Bellator production team, and they were awesome, man. It just felt like home. It felt so relaxed, so easy. I was a little nervous when they were talking about us interviewing Floyd Mayweather because, you're like, hey, you got 90 seconds with him. Don't fuck it up. Like really, I tell the refs when they get ready to walk into the cage, don't fuck this up, man.
That's my line.
And you know what? Every show, every pay-per-view before it started, John would walk by me and go, don't fuck this up. So it's kind of gone down the line. But with Floyd, you can't use the Larry Merchant line. You can't say, if I were 30 or 40 years young, Josh would be 7. If I were 7 years old, Floyd, I'd kick the shit out of you right now.
He's not a big guy, though. He was obviously, like, I think when he does interviews, he's media trained in terms of he speaks very, very easily. He's very kind, comes across very eloquent as best as he can. He seems like a good dude. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of other stuff that people know about him that I don't. But, I mean, on camera and in the interview, even before and after we had talked, it was fantastic. It's like one of those things. I've had an opportunity to meet and shake, Mike Tyson's hands. I've had an opportunity to interview, Floyd. I did my very first interview ever for Bellator was with Kimbo Slice. So those are like little memories that I remember when I started making my change into this, being an analyst or whatever you want to call us. There's certain interviews that really stick out in my mind. Yeah. And so, Kimbo obviously being one. Rest in peace. And then, Floyd, and then just having conversations with Tyson.
When you get through a couple of those big ones, and I know, John, you can attest to it as well. When you get through a couple of those big ones in your career, then all of a sudden, you don't get an arrogance, but you obviously get a real bolster and a real heightened feeling of, wow, I have a lot less doubt about being able to pull off a big interview. If I'm just myself, like I've been all the way up to getting the opportunity to interview this man or woman, and it goes smooth, then, okay, I've gotten to the level where I don't need to be nervous about that. I need to be prepared. We all know that, but I don't have to be nervous. And I think in a microcosm, that's exactly what Josh was just talking about.
Yeah, I was a little nervous with the only one that really kind of made me the most nervous was obviously the Floyd one. I was a little, I had to make sure I had all my P's and Q's.
Ducks in a row
for that one. But was the Gable Stevenson one in South Dakota we were in, because they hit me with like 10 minutes. Hey, we need you to fill, get him over. And then they're like, okay, didn't happen right then on the spot. Then they said, no, okay, it's not going to happen. So I was like, okay, sign a relief, and I just watched this kid wrestle in the Olympics, win a gold medal. I was all high on him. Like, this is going to be great. But there was a lot of nerves involved. I mean, it's kind of like his hometown in Sioux Falls, It's like everyone there knows him and they all look up to him. And it was just great to have him back home here in the States. That was probably the one I was probably the most nervous for. And I went back and watched the interview. Man, I was a fumbling idiot. My words were coming out so fast.
I'm going to be honest. This is what I have a partner named Thompson who gets mad when anyone says Thompson because of the P. And my man, and I know he knows Gable.
And I know.
He instead of calling him Stevenson, calls him Stevenson. I went, what did he just say?
And I had to
was like,
myself, and I knew.
You mean like the prodigy?
The prodigy.
Oh man. I was so mad at myself because I was like, it's funny. I even told myself, you got to say it right. You got to say it right. And it just came. I was so amped up and ready to go. And the crowd was nuts because he's a local kid, man. They love him.
Just
and
won the gold.
Won the gold medal. And he did it the way he did it was, he's just phenomenal, man. Anyways.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because we did a show at Penn State where Coach Kale was on. Not a chatty cat, but man, can he wrestle? But we had to kind of like keep poking him in the side to try to get him to bubble up a little bit at Penn State. So you're going to get what you're going to get. I tried to, in my mind, say Joanna's last name properly before every fight.
Yeah. And
every fight I said it properly. I just said it differently in every fight that I thought it was proper. And I think Joanna in my heart will be her name forever. She no longer has Yeon Jacek or see, that's what it was. That's what I was told it was. But then I was told it wasn't. So
who knows?
Don't feel bad because anyone that's interviewed Kale and anyone's interviewed, any wrestlers, that's why I think that's why the NC2As for wrestling, it's become a lot more popular. But now you're getting guys that are after in the interviews are talking a little bit of trash, talking a little bit of smack.
They have some personality.
They've got some personality. Yes. Back in the day, it's like, no, I'm the man. I was like, I'm going to beat him and smack. That's it. Instead of like, no, this guy's not. I'm like, there are levels of talking trash as we found out when Connor came into the sport. but wrestlers just haven't adapted to that. It's very hard nosed. No, they don't talk a lot of trash. They let their wrestling do their talking. And that's what you run into with Kale. Now, somewhere along the line, Dale Cormier fell far from that tree. That apple fell far from the tree, and
I heard he fell again today.
Oh, he's falling complete opposite, man. That guy, he can talk some trash, man. Whether it's whether you're friends or not, he'll talk trash to you.
Yep.
So, but no, I think wrestling has come a long way just in the last probably 5 years or 6 years, and they're growing. The sport's growing even more because the athletes understand that you have to have some sort of brand or personality. to help the sport
and
grow.
give us a storyline, right, John? Give us a storyline. Give us a reason. I mean, Tito was the greatest at wearing the black hat. You either wanted to see him win or you want to see him get his ass kicked, but somehow you press that red button for $59.99.
Because you wanted to see him. Mike, let me ask you this, man. With all the – I got to two-part here. All the fights that you've done, all the shows that you've done, you came in early in the UFC at UFC Japan, and you just stayed around forever because you were just this guy that people responded to and they related to. You worked with Jeff Blatnick as a two-man booth. Then you had Joe Rogan and you were a two-man booth. You kind of had Randy come in a couple of times as a three-man. When you worked with me and Josh, we worked as a two-man booth together, and then we had Josh where we were the three-man booth. Which way do you like it? Okay. And then second part on top of that, with all those shows, tell me what was the greatest show you ever did play-by-play on.
Wow. First of all, I think from a communication point of view, and now it works better in MMA than it would in boxing per se, the three-man booth. I think MMA can handle the three-man booth, but it really puts someone like myself in truly a quarterback. I don't even rush the ball. I just throw it to the flat. And I let you and Josh in certain occasions and Joe would be the one, and you remember this, John, Joe would be the one that really was intrigued by everything that Randy wanted to say or did say. And so Joe would want more from Randy. Now, we all love Randy. And Randy's not going to go on a sentence that's going to last any longer than 35 seconds. So we're safe there.
Yes.
But there was that feeling of having a fighter there along with Joe was good. It can get too crowded, though. I think sometimes just the camaraderie you have, and Joe and I were an example of it, just bounce off each other. Just bounce off each other, and then you could grow each other. When you have too many guys trying to talk or trying to be involved, but also trying to go by the playbook, if you will, in a live event and not step over each other when they're speaking. I like the two-man booth better. I like maybe going to another guy in between rounds. Like I've seen Dean Thomas or Eve Edwards or other people do it more often. Dan Hardy was doing it a lot. Go to that person between rounds, have them involved, but just don't have them right next to you the whole time, where you feel like, okay, I haven't spoken for a little bit, so I got to do a promo. But you know what I mean? You got Josh. Okay, I got to throw this one to Josh, not because I have to, but I want to keep it even. I want to keep it flowing. I want to keep the conversation with you guys going. So Josh, John, how about a counterpoint, So Jane, you ignorant slut, one of those. And so the 3-man booth is tough. I actually had a 4-man booth when I started at Pro Box. And it was Roy Jones Jr., Antonio Tarver, Paulie Malignaggi.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And Paulie's a 5-man booth just himself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, they all Roy talks, Paulie talks like a big
Yeah. And Antonio yelled at me one time for not telling him what was in the open, and I'd actually told him 3 times, but then he kind of messed it up, and it was my fault. But then again, I've lived with that since birth, so I'm okay with it.
This is what I feel like. I like the 3-man booth if I'm at home watching and listening, but I also think when it was the 3 of us, I always consider myself the 3rd guy and go ahead and let the first 2 talk, and then I'll get brought in when I need to, unless something technical needs to be talked about in terms of the grappling or the exchange or whatever it is. And then John would normally tap me and go, hey, talk about it. Like, I feel like if you have a 3-man booth, the 3rd person needs to know their place. And for me, it was like, hey, let you 2 talk. You guys hash out. You do all the legwork in terms of, sponsors and promos that need to be read. And when you bring me in when you need to, outside of that, I was cool with just chilling, watching cage side, man. I was just enjoying the cage side seat. And then when you guys brought me in, like, I like what he's doing here. He's stepping over the head, making sure that he's securing the arm, and then watch how this transition, that's it. And then I go ahead and throw it back to whoever, and you can continue to hype up the fight. But I think that 3rd person needs to know their place.
Yeah, and I remember you talking about that very thing about us having a great 3-man booth.
Yeah.
But John and I will sit here, and I know, John, you'll agree with me. Now all of a sudden we have Josh Thompson, world champion, sitting next to us at the desk. You're not there to be the 3rd guy, Josh. No. I mean, I respect that you were looking at the pecking order, but you're not there to be the 3rd guy. You're there because you're a world champion, and you had experienced the things that I never did, that John was right next to you experiencing. And John, you've obviously fought, but you're a world champion, Josh. And so it would be a discredit to you and to the broadcast itself if myself and John didn't tee you up and give you your space. Because if not, why even come down? If you're like a special guest, like for sponsorship, okay, that's something. But let me tell you this, in a 3-man booth, what you do lose is that true and pure energy and excitement, because you'll get too many conversations happening between perhaps the 2 analysts. And then John gets stuck on some fights truly just doing the fight clock and then doing the promos. And that's good on John because he's letting the other guys be the stars, which I know is my job. But at the same time, there's that crescendo and that buildup, it's not there. It's not there, and thus these broadcasts seem to be a lot more vanilla. They're probably driven by way, way more intellect, insight, and many other qualities that the fighters bring and the analysts bring. But the excitement, I don't think you can get.
If I'm the guy that's being, so I'm the 3rd guy. Look, I guess part of what I was kind of talked to, or at least told myself to, is I got super annoyed when past analysts would come in. All they'd do is talk about their fights, talk about what got them there, talk about what they would do. And I always made sure, no matter what, that it was about the production. It wasn't about me. No one gave, sure, people wanted my insight on stuff, but I wasn't there to promote myself. I was there to promote the other fighter. So when I had something important to say, I would try to get it in, or I would get it in. But when I came down there cage side, or when I sat up at the desk, it's not about me. It's not about it's not about what I've done in my career. You can use that as a way to market it. Absolutely. But for me, it was not about that. It was about what can I do to make these fighters, everyone at home, to like them, to want to watch them the next time. That's all I cared about. So if I talk less and you guys were talking more and you guys were hitting the points that I probably would have hit, what's the point of me chiming in? So I guess when I came down there, I had to put my ego aside. if you're going to be an analyst, you've got to do that. You can't talk about, oh, I did this and in this fight. And that was, I mean, I could have done that all day long and just sounded like a total jackass, you know, but I mean, I sound like a jackass enough. I don't need to help myself more.
I do the same thing.
You're getting no argument here. And really it's about the fighters.
Absolutely.
But for me, I always said, you know, I obviously knew what Joe's status was and his passion, and he'd talk over me all the time. He'd correct me. The talking over me, one thing, you don't correct your partner on the air. I always thought that wasn't fair on an on-air partnership. But he wasn't making fun of me. Although the Kimura, choke him out by Kimura thing where I read my notes wrong, I still wish we could go back to that show. And when he asked me, I should have said, well, you're the black belt. I can't say it this way. You're the black belt. You fucking tell me, Joe, because you're Eddie Bravo, like all this little crackhead control and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you do put your ego aside, and you put your ego aside because it is about the fighters and the fans. That's why you put your ego aside. And if anything, you use your experience to build them up even more so. John's experiences in the game, my experiences around the game and the storylines and getting people to be engaged because they're great people or they're a third generation fighter. And Josh, your insight from being a world champion. So it's just doing that to, much like you said a moment ago, Josh, to pick up the quality of our fighters and let the people watching know that they're truly watching high level competition. But at the end of the day, it's about the fighters and the fans. F&F, fighters and the fans.
Yep. Again, greatest show, greatest fight. I'm not letting you go because people ask me this crap all the time.
I know.
And I love being able to ask somebody else.
Do you give a different answer every time?
Oh, every time.
Yeah, because I can't remember. Greatest show, greatest time.
Greatest fight.
Well, Hendo and Shogun has to be right there. I mean, I was watching Gustafsson and Jones on YouTube last night. I'm like, I remember saying in Sweden, this is the only guy who can really put a scare into John Jones, and it's purely based on his length. It wasn't purely based on that, but the fact that...
Well, that's how they sold the fight.
Right, for sure. And that's how I said it, and I was the dumbest dumbass in the planet, on the universe. In the planet. Anyway, I was dumb on social media for saying that, but it ended up being true. My favorite fight was probably Michael Bisping and Luke Rockhold. And
one or two.
Two. 199 when he knocked him out.
Yeah.
Couple of reasons. First of all, Michael took the fight on short notice. Michael had over 20 fights in the UFC before getting a title shot, which is unheard of. People are getting them at 6 and 7 fights. And Muhammad Ali had passed, as you guys know, the night before. And I was up till about 2 a.m. with Zach Candido, and we were doing our tribute. And I was voicing our tribute to the great one. And then Kevin Casey, his son-in-law, was on the card. He was the Fabulous Forum. And I don't dislike Luke at all. I love Luke. But the way it happened and you know, Jason Perillo doing this, that was pretty damn crazy. And honestly, Rhonda and Holly in Melbourne, who expected it? And I still wish Joe would step back for a second. I know he's a busy guy, and understand what the fuck I meant when I said it takes a lot of energy to be a rock star. Because what I meant is she never turned on a fight. This fight was moved up 6 weeks. She was doing every commercial. She was doing every movie, because you capture those things and you jump on them while they're there, because they won't always be there. So if she looked a little tired and worn out and beat up going in, it's everything that she was doing outside, taking away from her focus on fighting. And the biggest thing was that Robbie Lawler was supposed to be on that card, and Ronda was supposed to have that fight 6 weeks later. That's why it takes a lot of energy to be a rock star. But to have that happen was incredible, because it was Melbourne, Australia, and Holly's quote of she's never been hit hard enough to know she's in a fight. And once she did, Ronda went chin up, hands down. And that was about that. I mean, I could talk about John and Shogun in New Jersey when he was a 23-year-old, youngest champion in UFC history. I will say Columbus, Ohio, being a Buckeye, and I know, John, this is more than one. You didn't want my top 100. I'll
you're
stop
good,
after
dude.
this one.
You keep going.
All right. I'm a Buckeye. I'm OH, baby. And it was the first show we had in Ohio.
Just say which number it was quick.
It
68.
Yeah, 68. Yeah, I was going to say that.
I knew
91
you were
was
going to say
against
that. That's why I'm here
91
for
was
you.
against Brock. 68. Randy's coming back. He's now kind of a member of the Geritol division. He's fighting Tim Sylvia.
43.
43, yeah. And that was 68. Now we're on UFC 1327. so I love Randy. Randy was my first fight. He was the main event. He beat Maurice Smith to win the heavyweight world championship. I have a relationship with Randy that I cherish. It's not the same as John and Randy have, but I'm definitely in that circle, and I'm honored to be in that circle and to know that I hit Randy up, he'll hit me right back because he's about as class act as they come. And so he comes out. We're in Ohio, and he comes out, and I get caught on the fucking clock promo when he comes out and smashes Tim in the first 3 seconds. Tonight's fight clock brought to you by and then I think I got it in about halfway through the round. Yeah. But then if you guys remember the crowd at the end of the fight, they counted down.
At the
like
end?
Miracle on Ice counted down, right? And I always joked with George Greenberg that I was going to say, "Do you believe in miracles?" And George said to me, "It's probably good that you didn't." And I'm like, "Yeah, it probably is." But being Ohio, being that fight, being a guy I admired that much, having everyone think this was silly for him to come back. Tim had been dominant. Tim had shocked the world not once but twice with beating Andrei Arlovsky and others. But the Arlovsky wins were the ones that really heightened the respect that Tim Sylvia had. To watch Randy, someone our age, do it and do it the way he did, 3 miles down from the horseshoe, that was very special from a lot of different angles for me. And I'll never forget Matt Hamill's walk in to hang on Sloopy. Yeah. Boom, ba bum. And he's right on the beat, right? The man is deaf.
He can feel it.
Thank you, John. Thank you. And I did. I asked his trainers, I asked his team, and he said he feels the vibration. I'm like, wow, that just being a Buckeye, Josh, that gives me chills because he's an Ohio kid, Cincinnati boy, and for him to have that moment there, it's just surreal to see him coming in to hang on Sloopy, and nobody would have known. And he never used it as any type of excuse, but no one would have known that he had anything different than the rest of us. That he had 2 ears that weren't functioning when most of us are blessed to have them, but yet he was hearing that music. He was feeling it like nothing else. Did I miss any?
No, that's awesome. That's what I wanted to know.
I mean,
there have been quite a few.
Anderson kicking Vitor in the face was a big one. 80,000 at Skydome, but we had a really big stadium in
Then I got to ask
Australia.
You're bringing up Anderson. How did it feel when your Cincinnati boy, being Rich Franklin, UFC 64, getting kneed the way he was? That had to have a little bit of heartbreak in you.
It had a ton of heartbreak in me. It had a ton. And he walked in to welcome to the jungle. He didn't have his pink trunks on that night. He had his Bengals colors on.
No, he had that at 77. He did have them in the first one, 64.
Okay. So that
he had the pink when he fought UFC 77 in Cincinnati against Anderson the second time.
Right.
You're right. He had the Bengal colors.
So that's the one I thought you were talking about, but they both were virtually identical, as one would say. It was. Why are you rolling your eyes, Josh?
I'm just laughing.
Okay, that's your laugh.
No, virtually identical.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I hated to see it happen to Rich. The one thing that eased the pain for me, as really he was a family member, being a Cincinnati boy, him and Gershel and all of them, was the fact that Anderson was so classy, and I could handle it coming off the knees of Anderson Silva a little better than perhaps some kind of villain, but it still bothered me. But what I remember most in Cincinnati are the Cincinnati, Ohio, the Queen City rituals that Rich had. But what I remember most, John and Josh, is Anderson apologizing to Rich after the fight, saying, "I'm so sorry that I am so sorry that I did this to you in your hometown. But it was a fight. And of course, Rich is like, hey.
You're sounding like George St. Pierre there.
Yeah, I tell you that. Matt Ooze is just a man.
I'm not impressed with your performance.
Yeah. but that always made me feel like it was a great martial arts moment in my hometown. Although it came at a big cost for Rich Franklin.
Yeah.
We really found out how great our athletes
were. Rich was such a good guy. I'll never forget, and it's when you're ringside like you are for all those fights and stuff, when things happen right in front of you, you can hear things, that are going on, and you'll hear. But as a referee, you hear just about everything every time, and I'll never forget the first knee that he got hit with good, and all of his air, you could hear whoosh, gone. And he was, and I was like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I said, just go down, dude. I'll stop it for you. I'll stop it.
Yeah.
And he fought on he didn't breathe for, I'm saying 40, 45 seconds of that fight.
Wow.
After that knee. And I was like, how are you doing this, dude? Because Anderson was put on, and he just kept to the point where, he ended up, obviously it took everything out of him. He got hit with a knee to the face, but I'll never forget I was like, oh.
That was one of the worst nose broken.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
It was nasty.
Him and Mike Perry, they're on a par.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Marvin Eastman had a famous cut, but I won't say what Joe said.
Hey, Goldie, I want to get you out of here on this, though, but you're working for BYB now, and when is your guys' next show, and what's the haps on it?
So, if you don't mind, I want to, because John, you had stepped away for a moment.
I'm sorry.
Our next show is, our next show is November 9th in Wolverhampton in the UK. Hurricane Ike Villanueva is in our co-main event. Love that guy. Absolutely love.
Tough dude.
Ike. Tough dude. And he got beat by a guy named Gustavo Trujillo in his first title defense. And so now Ike's taking another run at it. First time we interviewed Ike, we're talking to him. We're doing fighter interviews. Like, let's remind everybody in the world that I made Fedor laugh. First time. I made Fedor laugh. So you're just a kidney stone away from fighting at Madison Square Garden. He understands it.
Yeah.
But with that one, everything was just kind of, it was building up to that crescendo and the excitement that came within. And it just was special that I got to talk to this unique guy the day before. And he was so humble. He was so ready. And you just knew that there was going to be something special that was going to happen the next night. But when you see people who you think, oh, these guys are going to be a tough interview, and they're so soft-spoken and so giving and caring, so easy to talk to, that's the ones that I really cherish. That's the ones I cherish. And so with that in mind, in Hurricane Ike, when you had stepped away really quickly, you guys may know that BYB is Dada 5000's creation from the Trigon in his backyard in the projects of Miami from way back in the day. And we've brought it to a whole new level. Purchasing BKB about 7 months ago. Thus, our third show across the pond in this calendar year will be in a couple of weeks. We were just in Leeds. We had a show in Wales where Barry Jones, the Welsh Wrecking Machine, fought. So that was a hometown favorite for certain. But Josh was asking me about BYB. So, John, unsolicited, I want to get your thoughts on bare knuckle fighting's ability to go on a journey like MMA went on. And maybe not the UFC meteoric rise, but I asked this for a reason, obviously, but I say this because at the end of the day, people still are not nearly as excited when a fight hits the ground. And that will never change.
No,
so now you have two. Yeah, it does.
Just
they're
depends.
Educated now. But now you have all-out action and 95% finish rate. Preface it with that, but where do you think this sport can go, bare knuckle John, with the proper leadership?
Josh, we were lucky enough to be able to continue our relationship with OnlyFans. Now, OnlyFans started out as a basic way for people to be able to come together with people of knowledge in sports. Yeah, it went in different directions, but we're trying to bring them back to sports because sports is where it's at. We have so many people in the MMA world, the boxing world, the surfing world that are on OF, and you can be a fan of theirs. You can go to OF. If you don't want to see any of the girl stuff, you don't have to. It'll never come up in your feed. Only sports is what you want. Well, only sports is what you're going to get.
That's true, man. Look, a lot of fighters have jumped on this bandwagon like we did when we first started working with OnlyFans. So when I started off with OnlyFans, we were the very first podcast that they've ever worked with. And then we led them into signing.
Just say that again.
Yes, we are the only podcast. We were the first podcast that they ever worked with when they signed with us. So we've actually helped open up the doors for a lot of other top talented fighters to sign on the bandwagon. So with the OnlyFans, you've got Demetrius Johnson is on there, Luke Rockhold is on there, AJ McKee is on there, Chris Cyborg is on there. So many top athletes that are on there. Go ahead and check them out. Subscribe to them. Subscribe to us. It's fun for a little extra content. If you guys are looking for some more one-on-one connection with your favorite fighters and with your favorite podcast over here, go ahead and hit us up over there. And look, you guys will have access, ask questions so we can answer them a little bit more one-on-one with us on that platform than you do get with us on YouTube. So go ahead and head over to OnlyFans, subscribe to our Weighing In channel over there. It is free. It is free. There will be some content that we will put over there that will cost. John and I are still working that out. But look, I know a lot of you guys ask questions about John's refereeing seminar command. So him and I are trying to figure out something out that we can do there. And also too, with me, a lot of you guys are hitting me up in my DMs. Hey, what about this in this technique in fighting? What about this in jiu-jitsu? What about this in kickboxing? Why didn't the fighter do this? Well, if you guys want those kind of breakdowns, I'm willing to go ahead and jump on a video chat with you guys and do something over there, or I can just go ahead and put it onto a video and place it up for you guys over there. And that's something that we can work on in terms of pay. So look, we're looking forward to continue our partnership with OnlyFans, and looking forward to seeing you guys over there. Subscribe to us over there at OnlyFans.
With the proper leadership is exactly just like you were talking with Lorenzo Fertitta, because Bob Meyerowitz was 100% behind, bringing the UFC to this giant global thing, and just didn't have the ability to do it like Lorenzo did. And that's, there's just different levels to everything.
Right.
And it's the same thing. The one thing that I look at with bare knuckles is, let's take Ike Villanueva. Most people, I don't know if they know who Ike is, but Ike fought in the UFC. Ike fought in Bellator.
Yep.
Okay. And he's okay as a mixed martial arts fighter.
Right.
But there are those guys like an Ike, like a Mike Perry, that as a mixed martial arts fighter, they're good. They're just not that guy that's ever going to get to that championship level. Correct. They're not going to win that championship. They're probably never going to get that title chance based upon they have to beat these guys up here. But bare knuckle is perfect for them.
Correct.
It emphasizes the skill set that they have, and now they're one of those upper guys.
Yes.
And I love that about the sport of bare knuckle boxing. Look, I wrote rules for bare knuckle boxing, coming out. And that's what you guys are using still when you go to the States and stuff.
Yep.
And it's because I looked at it and said, hey, this can be a great sport. And it is a sport unto itself. Boxers, some will do good with it. Many will not.
Correct.
And that's based upon, if you're that technical boxer, it's not going to be for you.
Or many could be 500 with the gloves on and win 9 out of 10 fights without them on.
That's it. And so I love the whole thing. I think the excitement of it, we went and I did a 2-minute round instead of a 3-minute round. That was to get away from the 3-minute of, regular boxing.
Right.
But it's also to try to get it to where, hey, you don't have a whole lot of time.
Right.
And since you don't have a whole lot of time, don't worry about getting tired. Go after your opponent. Try to finish the fight. And that's one of the things that I think that has actually made bare knuckle boxing, the action in bare knuckle boxing is absolutely thrilling. And you've got to have a certain it factor to be good. And I think Eddie Alvarez said it perfect. You got to have the dog in you. And not everyone does. There's guys that are unbelievable fighters. They ain't dogs.
Yep.
They don't have to be. They got such skill set that they don't have to, bite down and be that guy. Where in bare knuckle, you better have the dog in you, because someone's coming after you to take your head off. Everything hurts. It hurts your hand. It hurts you to hit him. You know,
notes get very bloody.
Hurts to be hit. You know, yeah, the blood part, you know, look, it's colored sweat. Don't
Correct.
worry about it.
And I will say that MMA softened the world's view of that.
Absolutely.
To benefit bare knuckle enough.
Absolutely. But you know, the whole thing comes down to this, you know, and this is what I've tried selling it in different states, you know, talking to the commissioners of, look, for a long time, perceptions are reality. And I understand why you're worried about this, because you've been told bare knuckle is horrible. Bare knuckle, we allow knees, we allow elbows in the mixed martial arts world, in the UFC, all that. You know, those are heavier and harder weapons than the hand, and the hand breaks. I got to be pretty.
We had a guy suffer a broken hand in Leeds.
Yeah, I got to be pretty accurate with where I throw, and I can't throw that off into the head. I can go to the body a lot.
Correct.
And you're looking, it's just a matter of understanding it. Understanding having bare knuckles makes it to where, truthfully, it's you have to be a lot more cognizant of where you're hitting, and you'll see guys dipping their head so it hits off the top of the head.
Absolutely.
They use it as a weapon. But I love the bare knuckle boxing world.
Good. Well, I'm glad he said that, Josh, because I am like in the deep end of it, and I love who I work for. Mike Vasquez, our owner. Dada 5000 is just a big old softy when it comes down to it.
See, I worry about him because I figure
he's talked about. I tried to kill him. Back. He's not. Yeah, I know you did.
Him and Kimbo both.
I didn't know that. Did you know that Dada and Kimbo were actually cousins?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. And because of all this, somebody said to me at a BYB after party, Josh, like, they were cousins. I'm like, well, man, those cousins didn't like each other.
There's a lot of those out there.
Yeah, there is that.
Nothing like family drama.
You got that right. So, Josh, back to exactly what you had asked me at the very beginning, and thank you for asking for an update. I'm all the way in the deep end, as I was for 25 plus years in MMA. 19 of those with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, because I believe we can go a place, and I'm working for a man now. I'll preface this not like John would. I'll preface this like Mike will, or my mom will get up from the other room where she rests in peace and smack me upside the head. There are people that I'm working for who are more family and team oriented than I believe I have ever worked for in my professional career. And at my age, at this time, and wanting to make, not needing to, but wanting to make another big statement. My career didn't end at the UFC. I had some Scottish kid in Leeds cry when he saw me. I was like, wow, damn, like, are you crying because I look so old now compared to what you saw me as? But it's so heartwarming. But I really believe that this can be something, John. And off the air, I want to talk to you and Josh about it even more so, because BYB's doing it right. The other organization is the one that's got more eyes, and they've got the names and the fighters. But I think we can all say without saying that they're doing some things that aren't helping themselves in the big picture and the big scheme. John L. Sullivan fought late in the 1700s, and that makes the oldest form of combat sports, other than going way back, to Asia, bare knuckle boxing. They didn't put their gloves on back then. So the history, everything. We had a kid, Harry Gigliotti, win a title in Leeds, you guys, 4th generation of boxers from Haverhill, Massachusetts. 92-year-old grandfather, Stephen. He said, my grandpa Goldie, he stayed alive for this moment. He threw a liver shot from hell. He won the fight, and he's bawling afterwards. So those belts mean something to them too. Because there's a guy who was dealt. We get a lot of guys, you guys, that have dealt with the politics of blood boxing. And so the freedom comes with that. We have Roberto Duran's son on our roster, Robert Duran Jr. And the most interesting thing he said is not that he didn't dislike boxing, but he was always, Roberto Duran's son with the gloves on. When he took them off, he could start to create
walk his own footsteps.
Yes, absolutely. And he can put up his own image of what he wants to be. And awesome. So I think we changed it. He changed it from hands of stone to like he made it hands of steel or something. That's just having fun in the meetings. But there's a lot of promise for it. And Josh, that's why I wanted to catch you on that before we were done, because it really is fun. We really have a great team. And in the end, I still get to say it's all over. And then, one other quick note, it'll be quick, I promise. And I get to say, until we see you next time, inside the Trigon.
Trigon.
And I don't know if you know this, John, but Brucey Connell, and you know Bruce as well, obviously, Josh, may he rest in peace. Guess who the executive producer and leader of production at BYB is?
Who is it?
Tyler Connell.
Oh,
No
I thought he
kidding.
was really.
That's
Yep,
good.
He was with us at Bellator.
Yeah, I know. I thought he was working for some trucking company. And
He is.
Okay.
He's doing that as well.
Okay,
But
so
I brought him in to meet our bosses, and
multitasking.
he missed it. No, he is. He missed being in the live truck. But I'll tell you what, man, he and we keep Brucey alive. We still do what we did in the talkback, and we did it with Nordy even, like Brucey, Goldie. So now Tyler and I will do that.
Nice.
And guess who else works at BYB Extreme?
Who's this?
Talk to me.
Cole Goldberg.
No, really, your son.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yep, been there over a year. He does the bios, Josh. He does
Nice.
merchandise.
Now, Cole graduated from Arizona State University in journalism, right? Or
correct. Yeah, it was at Cronkite for 2 years, then the business school. So technically, it was sports business.
Got it.
But he has the knowledge of both, which is perfect because he's on that side of it. Our owner said, "Hey, tell Cole he just got a promotion today." I'm like, "Wow!" And it was like he was there 2 weeks. Like, okay. Tell him he's the new chairman. As in, come over here, get your ass over here now and help me with the chairs, man.
That's awesome.
Hey, Goldie, man, I want to thank you so much
Thank
for coming
you.
on. Appreciate you, my man. And yeah, we'll have to do this again.
I miss you guys, man. I miss you guys a ton. These kind of relationships, these friendships. This is the first guy I met down there, Josh. First guy I met when I got there. With his beautiful wife greeting me in the hotel with those beautiful blue eyes.
Mike, I will tell you this. You're a legend, brother. You were part of,
Thank you.
you have made other people's lives better with your commentary and making things special throughout your time with UFC, Bellator, and now BYB. God bless you for everything that you've done. I love you, my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Mike Goldberg.
It is all over.
It's all over.
You should let me do that, John.
Okay.